Today we're going to continue our discussion about dividing fractions. We're using page 93 of your workbook. This is lesson 310, part 2, when dividing is also multiplying. Today we'll be dividing a unit fraction by a whole number. Remember that unit fractions are just fractions that have 1 on top and a denominator greater than 1. We'll be dividing these by whole numbers. So here's an example of what we'll be doing today. With this problem, the first thing that we need to do is realize that we have a fraction divided by a whole number. And we can't use whole numbers when we're dividing fractions or multiplying fractions. So we're going to turn our whole number into a fraction by simply creating a denominator of 1 and turning it into an improper fraction, 5 over 1. As we discussed in our last video, when we're dividing fractions, we really are going to relate it to a multiplication problem. So we're going to change it into a multiplication problem. If you recall that when we do that, our first factor, 1/2 in this case, will stay the same. Our sign, our division sign, will be replaced with its opposite, which is a multiplication sign. And remembering that when you change one thing to its opposite, that you'll need to change the very next factor to its opposite. And remember that we call the opposite its reciprocal. So we're going to flip 5 over 1 and turn it into 1 over 5. Remember that we only do that with the second factor. The first factor must remain the same. Now we can proceed with our problem as normal. We have a multiplication problem and we're looking to cross cancel if possible 2 and 1 and 5 and 1, or perhaps even simplify our fractions 1/2 and 1/5. You can see that nothing can be done with the cross canceling here. So now we're just going to multiply straight across 1 times 1, our numerators, and we'll get 1. And our denominators 5 times 2 and get 10. We'll check that fraction to make sure that it is simplified and not improper. This fraction is simplified because of the prime number on the top, the 1, and it's not improper, so this is our final answer. With this problem, 1/6 divided by 3. I wanted to show you a fraction bar so you could kind of see how this is supposed to work. So we have a fraction bar here which we could relate to any object that you want. It could be a banana, it could be a rectangular pizza, and the whole thing equals 1 whole. This would be your whole pizza. If we break the pizza up into 6 equal parts, that's what we have shown here. Each part is 1/6. We're being asked in our division problem over here to take 1/6 of this pizza and divide that up into 3 equal parts. So let's do that. We're going to take 1/6 of our pizza, which is any one of these pieces. They're all 1/6. And we're going to break it up into 3 equal parts. When we do one piece and cut one piece into 3 equal parts, we need to do the same thing to all of them because we need to have the same number of equal parts for each piece. And that will now break the entire pizza up not into just 6 pieces, but into now, if you count them, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 pieces. Now our pizza is broken into 18 pieces. Now, if we look at just 1/6 of our pizza, we still can see where our 1/6 are. And if we take just 1/6, and I'm going to take just the very first 1/6 right here, and you can use any of them if you want, but we've taken this 1/6 and we're going to cut that piece into 3 equal pieces, or divide it by 3. Now, how much would each person get out of the entire pizza if we took 1/6 of it away and cut that 1/6 into 3, or divided it into 3 equal pieces? And so you can look at it as each person is going to get 1 piece, because we're cutting it into 3 equal pieces, so they'll each get 1 piece out of the 3. But how much is that really in comparison to the entire pizza? Well, that's 1 piece out of a total of 18 pieces. So 1/6 divided by 3 is the same as taking a sixth of something and cutting one of those sixths into 3 equal pieces and telling me how much one of those is. One piece would equal 1 out of the total number for the entire pizza, which is 18. Now I'll show you how that works when we relate it to multiplication. We're going to now take our division problem and do what we've been doing. We're going to turn our whole number into an improper fraction, and then we're going to rewrite it as a multiplication problem. So our first factor stays the same. Our sign will change to its opposite, and then we need to invert. That's what we're doing to the second factor. We're going to invert it, or write the reciprocal of 3 over 1, which is basically the same thing as flipping it. Flipping it means the same thing as the reciprocal. And now we're going to multiply straight across. 1 times 1, and we get 1. And 6 times 3, and we get 18. So you can see that by doing what we're supposed to be doing, changing the sign, flipping or inverting the second factor, we get 1 over 18. And by drawing a rectangular pizza, cutting it into 6 pieces, taking 1/6 of it and dividing that 6 into 3 equal parts, thus turning all of our 6 into 3 equal parts, we can see that we get 1/18 there as well. On page 19, I would just like you to read through the scenario, the long story that they're telling you, and look to the right over here in this area and try to follow along with the scenario. Then I would like you to complete numbers 17 through 20 on your own. Pause the video now. Now turn to page 94 of your workbook. We'll be going over questions 21 through 23 together. Let's take a look at number 24. Here we're dividing two whole numbers. If you were to set this up in a traditional way, it would look something like this. 3 divided by 10. Now, 10 won't go into 3. So it's likely you would be stuck here unless you knew how to divide using decimals. But we can divide using fractions. We can turn our whole numbers into fractions. Because we know how to do that by simply putting a 1 underneath the whole number. 3 becomes 3 over 1, divided by, instead of 10, 10 over 1. And now we have two fractions that we're dividing. And we have a system for that. So we're going to convert that into a multiplication problem by keeping the first factor the same. 3 will remain 3 over 1. Changing the sign to its opposite and inverting the second factor, 10 over 1, or flipping it, or writing its reciprocal, which is 1 over 10. And now we have a multiplication problem with a whole number and a unit fraction. We can look to cross cancel, try to cross cancel 3 and 10, and that cannot be done. And 1 and 1 is prime, so there's no way to cross cancel that. And now we just multiply. 3 times 1 is 3, and 1 times 10 is 10, and we have an answer of 3/10. And you need to fill in the conversion to multiplication, and this should be 3 over 1 times 1 over 10. This is how you will fill them in. Number 25 is a very similar problem to that. I would like you to complete the rest of this page on your own and be prepared to go over these questions at the end of the period. If you find yourself struggling with any of these problems, rewind the video or go back to yesterday's video and learn how to convert division problems into multiplication problems.